Saw 10 releases in theatres in less than 2 weeks, and if you don't have the time or the stomach to rewatch the Saw films, then don't worry, because I have you covered with a Saw recap and the road to Saw 10. Hi guys, I hope you're all doing really well. My name is Sarah and welcome to What the Horror, the channel where we talk about horror movies old and new. With the announcement that Saw 10 will take place between Saw and Saw 2, I thought it would be a good idea to provide you with a recap of the events leading up to and including the first film. Everything from the beginning of John Kramer as Jigsaw, the recruitment of Mark Hoffman and Amanda Young, and the infamous bathroom trap. Obviously, it goes without saying that this episode will include spoilers. John Kramer was a civil engineer working for the Urban Renewal Group, a company he co-founded along with lawyer Art Blank. John was happily married to Jill Tuck, a doctor who worked at the Homeward Bound Clinic. This was a recovery clinic for addicts that she had set up with the help of her husband John. The clinic's motto was "Cherish your life," words that would become a cornerstone of John's later, less than civil work. In the early 90s, John and Jill Kramer were expecting a baby who they were going to call Gideon after a building owned by John. I know, a little random, but let's go with it. And John was eagerly preparing for the arrival of the baby, even crafting him his own cute little Billy the puppet. One night, addict Cecil Adams and his girlfriend Amanda Young head to the clinic to steal methadone. Cecil begins to have second thoughts, but Amanda persuades him to go ahead. So, while Jill is locking up and with John waiting outside in the car, Cecil threatens Jill, grabs the methadone, but on his way out, hits Jill in the stomach with the door handle. Despite John finding her and rushing her to the hospital, the two sadly lose their baby. After this, John becomes withdrawn from Jill and from his work, and eventually his and Jill's marriage breaks down, with Jill reverting to her maiden name, Tuck. Not long after this, John's health began to deteriorate, and he visits the Angel of Mercy Hospital for tests. Unfortunately, a Dr. Logan Nelson mixes up John's x-rays, and when he is finally diagnosed with colon cancer and a frontal lobe tumour, the tumour is now inoperable. John is treated in the Angel of Mercy Hospital by oncologist Dr. Lawrence Gordon, but his cancer is terminal and he is now living under a ticking clock. Despite John's diagnosis being terminal, he was still hopeful to find a cure or therapy that would save his life. He had heard of experimental gene therapy being done by a doctor in Norway, but when he approached his insurance company, Umbrella Health, to cover the cost, his request was rejected by William Easton. The hopelessness of John's illness leads him to attempt to take his own life, but when he fails, he realizes that facing his imminent death made him want to live and cherish his life. John decides he wants to spend the remainder of his life teaching those who he believes waste and don't value the life they have the same philosophy. And he'll do this by placing them in traps that are timed with a ticking clock, a literal representation of his own time-sensitive illness. Putting his engineering skills to use and doing a little reconnaissance work, John puts his plans into action and decides on Cecil, the addict who caused the loss of John and Jill's baby, as his first trap victim. While the trap didn't exactly work to perfection, it did end in Cecil's death and the beginning of John Kramer's career as Jigsaw. Once Jill hears of the discovery of Cecil's body, she confronts John as she fears he was responsible for his death. This confrontation confirms Jill's fears and finalizes the end of their marriage. John continued with his work, eventually setting up the barn trap located on a pig farm owned by Jill Tuck's family. In this trap, he placed Dr. Logan Nelson, the doctor who had mixed up his x-rays, along with 4 other victims, including his neighbour Anna, who had let her husband take the blame for their child's death, and Mitch, who had caused the death of John's own nephew. When the trap began and Logan Nelson was injured, John had a change of heart and saved Logan's life, feeling he shouldn't die for an honest mistake. John then nursed Logan back to health and eventually recruited him as his apprentice. Together, they continued John's work until Logan joined the US Army from May 2003 to July 2005. Detective Mark Hoffman was a celebrated member of the police force until his beloved sister Angelina was killed by her ex-boyfriend Seth Baxter. This led Hoffman to go off the rails until 5 years later he would join the Jigsaw killer investigation. Seth Baxter, the killer of Hoffman's sister, was released from prison on a technicality, but working on the Jigsaw case had given Hoffman the inspiration to kill Seth himself, but under the guise of a jigsaw trap. So, he places Seth in the pendulum trap, but with no chance of survival. John Kramer wasn't exactly happy about someone using his work and name to hide behind in order to commit their own murders. And when John discovers that it was Detective Hoffman, he leaves him an anonymous note one night at work and sedates and captures him in an elevator. Hoffman woke up in one of John's traps and was confronted by the real Jigsaw killer. John shares his anger at Hoffman's actions, calling it nothing more than murder, and how he finds murder abhorrent. Hoffman was given a choice: either fill Logan's role by joining John as his apprentice and learning John's philosophy, or John would give the police evidence of Hoffman's trap for Seth Baxter. Feeling there is no other option, Hoffman secretly becomes John's next apprentice, whilst also continuing to investigate the Jigsaw cases in his role as a detective. The first trap they did together was the razor wire trap for a Paul Leahy. Hoffman helped John both capture Paul and set up the trap, with John encouraging Hoffman to stay and watch the traps unfold. Hoffman then warned John of his colleague, a detective David Tapp, who was investigating the Jigsaw cases as well and getting closer to discovering John. But John was already aware of Detective Tapp, and while at hospital, he had stolen the penlight of his doctor, Lawrence Gordon, and he planned on placing it at the scene of one of his traps as a misdirection, which John then does at the next trap he and Mark set up together, a trap for a Mark Wilson, involving a slow-acting poison, a candle, and flammable jelly. When investigating the scene, Detective Tapp and his colleague Detective Singh discover the penlight. The next trap that John and Hoffman would set up was the infamous bear trap, also known as the jaw trap. This trap was set for Amanda Young, who John had captured and wanted to test because of her addiction, but John was unaware of her involvement with Cecil and the loss of his child. Amanda woke up in the warehouse with the bear trap attached to her head. She watched a video of Billy the puppet giving her instructions on how to survive the trap. All she had to do was find the key that was hidden in the stomach of her supposedly dead cellmate. Unfortunately, the man wasn't dead, only sedated, but Amanda has the will to live, finds the key and removes the trap from her head before it goes off. Distraught, Amanda breaks down and cries, but is congratulated by Billy the puppet for winning her game and now being able to appreciate her life. Amanda flees the warehouse and heads to the police station. When forensic results come back with a name for the penlight, Detective Tapp and Detective Stephen Singh visit the Angel of Mercy Hospital to speak to Dr. Lawrence Gordon and ask him about his whereabouts at the time of Mark's death. After speaking to his lawyer, Lawrence admits that he was with one of his trainees who he had been having an affair with. But despite the alibi being confirmed, Singh wanted Lawrence to stay and listen to a testimony from the only person so far to have survived a jigsaw trap, Amanda Young. After this interview, Amanda returns home only to find John Kramer waiting for her. He tells her not to be afraid of him, and feeling as though he really helped her, she agrees to become his apprentice. Meanwhile, Detective Tapp and Singh are investigating the tape found at Amanda's trap. Detective Singh, about to leave for the night, was stopped by Tapp, who had spotted graffiti on one of the walls. Graffiti linked to the K2K gang. They also hear a fire alarm, and after checking fire reports, they manage to pinpoint an address at an abandoned mannequin factory on Stygian Street. The pair arrive at the factory without a warrant, armed, looking for Jigsaw. They discover Jigsaw's lair, or at least one of them, finding models of traps, a pig mask, and engineering equipment. They also find a man called Jeff Ridenauer hidden under a red sheet attached to one of Jigsaw's traps. Instead of freeing Jeff, Tapp, after hearing the elevator coming up, wanted to hide to get a better look at Jigsaw. Singh initially refuses but then goes along with it. John begins talking to Jeff until Tapp and Singh emerge from their hiding spaces. John activates the trap but ends up on his knees. While Singh tries to deactivate the trap, it distracts Tapp enough for John to slice Tapp's throat with a knife hidden under his robe. John then runs away with Singh in pursuit. John leads Singh down into some corridors. John is then supposedly killed and falls to the ground, but when approaching John's body, Singh triggers a tripwire and is killed. John, unhurt, then gets up and leaves the factory. After Detective Singh's death, Detective Tapp is fired for entering the factory without a warrant, an act that led to the death of a police officer. Racked by feelings of guilt over his partner's death and at the loss of his job, Tapp suffers a mental breakdown. He spirals into an obsession over solving the Jigsaw murders himself. And still believing the Jigsaw killer to be Dr. Lawrence Gordon, Tapp rents a flat over the road from Lawrence's apartment and fills the wall with evidence. In late 2004, Tapp uses a false name of Bob and hires a freelance photographer called Adam Stanheidt, paying him $200 a night to follow and photograph Lawrence Gordon. Adam then followed Lawrence for a few days, even following him to a hotel room where Lawrence was meeting his student. But in following Lawrence, Adam caught the attention of John Kramer, and he would be added to the trap that John had planned for testing his doctor, Lawrence Gordon. To prepare for the bathroom trap, John abducted a man called Sepp Hindle, an orderly working at the same hospital as Lawrence Gordon. John injected him with a slow-acting poison and gave him a tape with instructions on, and if he succeeded in these instructions, Zepp would be given the antidote to the poison. All he had to do was kidnap Lawrence's wife and daughter and hold them captive while Lawrence completed his test. If Lawrence failed, however, then Zepp was ordered to kill Lawrence's family. After all, it's the rules. John also gave Amanda an envelope with instructions in it for her role in the trap. Amanda then went to Adam's apartment where she waited for him hidden in a wardrobe. In the meantime, John had sedated and captured Lawrence Gordon from the hotel car park and taken him to the bathroom. Adam returned home after having followed Lawrence to the hotel. He processed some of the photographs in his dark room before falling asleep. When he woke up, his apartment was in darkness, and he could hear a strange sound coming from the shadows. Using the flash on his camera and grabbing a baseball bat, Adam searched his apartment, but after finding and attacking Billy the puppet, he was then attacked by Amanda wearing a pig mask. Adam was sedated and taken to the bathroom by Amanda. When Amanda arrived at the bathroom, she found John already inside setting the room up, having already chained Lawrence to a pipe. Amanda then strips Adam of his shoes and socks, attaches his leg to a chain and places him in the bathtub. She also haphazardly throws in the key to his chain. Amanda then goes to leave, turning off the lights and closing the door, as John lays on the floor and positions himself to appear as though dead. Mere moments later, Adam woke up having fallen under the water while unconscious. He climbs out of the bathtub into the dark room, accidentally pulling the plug out with his foot, causing the key to go down the drain. Screaming for help, Adam hears the voice of a man in the room with him. This man manages to turn on the lights and is revealed to be Dr. Lawrence Gordon. Despite recognizing Lawrence, Adam pretends not to know him, and both men are then shocked to see the supposed dead body lying on the floor between them. The man is holding a gun in one hand and a tape player in another. The two men share their names and try to recall how they ended up in the bathroom, with neither one remembering. They also try to unlock the chains on their legs, open the door to the bathroom, and find a clue as to what is going on. They eventually both find an envelope with their name on it in their pockets. In Adam's envelope there is a tape, and in Lawrence's there is a tape, a bullet, and a key. After both trying the key, they realize it's not for the chains on their legs. They then attempt to recover the player from John's hand and listen to their tapes. Adam's tape describes him as apathetic but mostly just pathetic, and says he's a voyeur and asks is he going to watch himself die or do something about it, while Lawrence's tape says his aim in the game is to kill Adam and has until 6 o'clock to do it. If he fails, then his wife and daughter will be killed and he will be left in the bathroom to die. Lawrence hears a voice on his tape saying follow your heart, and after searching round the room they spot one drawn on the toilet. Adam goes diving and eventually finds a bag hidden in the tank, and wishing he'd checked in there earlier, finds 2 hacksaws. He throws the remainder of the bag in the bathtub, and both Adam and Lawrence try to cut the chains with the saws. But when Adam's breaks, Lawrence realizes that the voice on the tape doesn't want them to cut the chains, but rather their legs. Lawrence then tells Adam that he thinks they have been put there in the bathroom by a serial killer called Jigsaw. He explains who Jigsaw is to Adam and how he had actually been a suspect in the investigation. Despite this being the most fun Adam has had without lubricant, he becomes angry at Lawrence and threatens him with a shard of glass. But he quickly realizes it's two-way glass, and after shattering the mirror on the wall, discovers the camera with which Zepp is watching the trap unfold. Lawrence remains calm despite worrying about his family, and recalls the last time he spoke to his daughter. He then throws his wallet over to Adam to show him a photo of her, and this is when Adam instead discovers a Polaroid of Lawrence's wife and daughter tied up with a message saying X marks the spot. Sometimes you see more with your eyes shut. Choosing to keep the photo a secret for now, while Lawrence is looking for clues, Adam is thinking about what the message could mean. Inspired by a comment from Lawrence, Adam tells him to turn off the lights, and once he does, they see a cross lit up on the wall. It was painted in glow-in-the-dark paint, now charged up by the lights. Lawrence smashes the tiles and finds a box hidden in the wall. Using the key from Lawrence's envelope, they open the box and find a phone that can only receive calls, 2 cigarettes, and a note for Lawrence saying, "The cigarettes are harmless, I promise. Smoking is only poisonous when it ends in bloodshed." Lawrence tries the phone and fails, but the sound triggers a memory of him being captured in the car park. And after arguing, Adam reveals the photo to Lawrence of his wife and daughter, and this triggers the beginning of Lawrence's breakdown. Lawrence then has the idea to offer a cigarette to Adam, but while he dips one in the poisoned blood on the floor, he turns off the lights, whispers his plan to Adam, and once the lights are back on, instead throws a clean cigarette over to him. The aim is to make the person watching believe that Adam died from the poisoned cigarette, with Lawrence successfully completing his test. But despite Adam's moving performance, he is given an electric shock through the chain on his leg, which then triggers him remembering how he ended up in the bathroom. Not long after, Lawrence receives a phone call from his wife and daughter, who are now being threatened by Zepp, as time is ticking closer to 6 o'clock. Lawrence's wife tells him not to trust Adam. Lawrence then confronts Adam, who finally shows him his photos that had been hidden in the bag along with the hacksaws. He also admits that he had been taking photos for a few days now, having been hired by someone to follow Lawrence. Thinking the person who hired Adam is likely to be the one who put them in the trap, Lawrence asks who it was that paid him. From Adam's description, Lawrence realizes it was former detective Tapp. Adam then notices a photo in amongst his that he didn't take. It shows Zepp standing at the window in Lawrence's apartment, and while Lawrence recognizes the man as a member of staff at the hospital and threatens to kill him, Zepp meanwhile heads off to kill Lawrence's family. But Allie, Lawrence's wife, has gotten out of her restraints and attacks Zepp. But when she is distracted by her daughter's screams, Zepp once again gets the upper hand. Tapp hears the ruckus and runs over to the Gordons' apartment. Tapp and Zepp then get into a fight while Allie and Diana run out to safety. Lawrence hears everything that is going on through a phone call Allie had made minutes earlier, and believing his family to be in danger, finally mentally breaks down. He's then electrocuted, which causes him to drop the phone, and is then unable to reach it when it rings again. Driven to desperation, he ties his shirt around his ankle, and to Adam's horror, begins to saw off his foot. In the meantime, Tapp has followed Zepp to the location of the bathroom and chased him through the tunnels underground. This pursuit leads to Tapp being killed by Zepp. Lawrence, completely broken, then loads the bullet from his envelope and fires at Adam, hitting him in the shoulder. Zepp then enters the bathroom but informs Lawrence that he's too late and has failed his test. And he doesn't know just how right he is, because at that moment Adam grabs Zepp's leg and kills him with the toilet lid. Lawrence, looking a tad worse for wear, then tells Adam that he's going to get help, leaving Adam alone in the bathroom. Adam searches Zepp's pockets and finds a tape player, like the one in the bathroom, and as he listens to the tape, his gob had never been more smacked, as he learns that Zepp was not the one behind the trap, but was instead just another victim of his own. But more shocks were still to come, as the apparent dead body lying on the bathroom floor then stands up. John tells Adam that the key to his chain is in the bathtub, but remembering the key went down the drain, Adam then attempts to kill John. But John electrocutes Adam and closes the door with the final statement, "Game over," leaving Adam to die alone in the dark. After leaving the bathroom, John finds Lawrence in the tunnel, unconscious after having cauterized his leg. John then rescues Lawrence and nurses him back to health. Lawrence then begins to trust John, and after he is released, he willingly becomes John's new accomplice. After the bathroom trap, Amanda is haunted by guilt over Adam's fate, and she returns to the trap to apparently mercy kill, but also just murder Adam. After it was a less than peaceful death, this only adds to her guilt and leads her mental health to begin to deteriorate. What Amanda doesn't know is that while she believes she snuck out unnoticed, John saw her leave and knows what she did. While John continued his work, he also took the time out to visit a man named Bobby Dagan, who had written and released a book claiming he was the survivor of a jigsaw trap. But John Kramer knew full well he wasn't, and when he visited an autograph signing session, he alludes to the fact that he knows the truth. And that is the road to Saw 10. All of the events leading up to and including the bathroom trap from the first film, and the immediate events afterwards that took place before Saw 2, I believe. But let's be honest, I could have missed something in this twisty-turny franchise and plot. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you haven't been able to revisit the films in preparation for the release of Saw 10, then I hope this episode helped. And hey, maybe you just enjoyed revisiting the antics of John, Amanda, Adam, and Lawrence. I know I always do. If you are a fan of the Saw films and you found me through this episode, then hello. I will leave a link to my Saw playlist, and don't forget to subscribe, as there will be more Saw content coming in October and beyond. Next week's episode, though, will be a ranking of the Conjuring universe, including the recent The Nun 2, so keep your eye out for that. But in the meantime, thank you as always for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye.